I love reading about rich people. Hello and welcome to today's video, which is going to be my January wrap-up. This is the first wrap-up of 2023, and I actually had a pretty good reading month. Just getting right into it, I read 11 books this month. We're just gonna, like normal, we know how wrap-ups work. Let's just get into it. The first book I read in January was The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. I gave this a 4.5 stars. Very, very, very good first read of 2023. I did not like The Spanish Love Deception by Ali Hazelwood, but I really enjoyed this one. I stayed up all night to finish this book. I pretty much read this in one sitting. If you don't know what this is about, the best friend of the protagonist of The Spanish Love Deception, the protagonist in this book is named Rosie Graham, and she falls in love with Lucas. And Lucas is the cousin of the main character in The Spanish Love Deception. So the books are very much connected. I would say you don't really have to read them in order, but it makes more sense, but you don't have to. But I did. I hated the first one. I loved this one. I was instantly sucked into the story. The beginning really caught my attention. It was a really good meet cute. Basically, the plot line is kind of like Rosie is having a life crisis, and so is Lucas, and they accidentally share Catalina's apartment or Lena's apartment at the same time. I really loved their meet cute. I thought it was very unique and funny, and I liked it. I liked the aspect of Rosie having a standing crush for Lucas. If you read the first book, you'll know that Rosie, the best friend, is in love, or not in love with, but regularly stalks Lucas on social media. Not stalks, but he's kind of a famous surfer guy. So she kind of knows him, follows him, whatever. She's really hoping to meet him in the first book, and actually meets him in the second book. And so she knows a lot about him, but she kind of has to hide it because he doesn't know her. The only part that didn't make it a 5-star for me was the ending. It felt a little bit rushed and abrupt, but I loved Lucas. He was a good book boyfriend. And it was dual POV. I love a dual POV, especially in a romance book. I highly recommend this one. The cover might not be the cutest thing ever, but I really enjoyed it. And I think even if you didn't like The Spanish Love Deception, you should definitely try this one out. Enemies to lovers, or Grumpy Sunshine, is one of my favorite tropes, and I still didn't like The Spanish Love Deception, so try this one out. Just try it. Alright, the second book I finished was So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Olu, and I rated this 4 stars. There's not really a synopsis I can give you. If you want to read the back, look it up. But it was a very informative read. I try and read nonfiction books as often as I can, and this was a really good one. I've read a few race-related books, and I think this is probably my favorite. The voice of this author is so good. The writing is so good, and the way that the information is broken down, race is obviously a very hard and complex subject, and so the way that the author broke these really complex ideas down for people who didn't maybe major in race relations or politics or what social sciences, whatever. So as a high school student, I don't necessarily know everything. I am still trying to learn. That's why I read this book, and I really appreciated how it was broken down in a very easy to read manner. I never got bored. It was actually a very engaging book. I felt like I was learning, and I actively remembered the things I was learning. It is an uncomfortable book, but it's supposed to be. Reading a book about race is never going to be comfortable because it's not a comfortable subject. It's something that we need to change our viewpoints around. So challenging your viewpoints is always going to be uncomfortable and challenging, but it's necessary. The next book I finished was Fury Born by Claire Legrand. This is a young adult fantasy book, and I rated it 3 stars. This book started out a bit slow for me. It has a split timeline, which was kind of really hard to get into. It's about 2 queens, a sun queen and a blood queen, a mother and a daughter, and it follows the split timelines. One queen is supposed to end the world and one's supposed to save the world, so it kind of follows their split timelines and their what's happening in their life. And this is a series. One of the characters is Riel and one is Eliana. I started out liking Riel better, but I ended up liking Eliana better. And another thing that was really hard about this book was I got names confused a lot. So I would have to like remember, actively think about which was the daughter and which was the mother, you know what I mean? I think, okay, low-key, I think the daughter and the mother thing was supposed to be like a big plot twist, but I figured it out in the beginning, and I don't know if I was supposed to or if it like that's unusual, but I figured it out in the beginning, and then there was like, I think there was supposed to be this huge reveal. So I might be spoiling it, but I felt like it was pretty obvious. I felt like it wasn't, I don't know, maybe it was supposed to be a reveal, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I really liked the character Simon. It's okay, it is fantasy romance. I feel like this book could have just been way shorter. It was a good book. Like I rated it 3 stars. It was average. But I feel like my critiques for this book are like it could have been turned into 100 pages, because this was all world building and all like leading up. It was all like leading up to the fact that they have to fight this war. And I was like, from the beginning, I knew you were going to have to fight this war. We didn't have to go through this in 500 pages for me to figure out like there's going to be a war. Like that was obvious. Why didn't you just make this into like a 200 page beginning of the book? Like I felt like I read the first 2 chapters of a book, but like in 500 pages. It was a lot and nothing happened in this many pages. I think I'm going to finish the duology. I'm not really sure yet. I did listen to this on audio while I was reading the physical books, but it was like a 24-hour audiobook, and that's super long, and like nothing happened in this book, like barely anything. Next, I read my first Sally Rooney ever, Normal People by Sally Rooney. Obviously, this is a very popular book. I gave it 3 stars, but I feel like that's not an appropriate rating. I feel like I can't rate this book appropriately no matter what. I wrote this little summary. I'm just gonna read it out after I finish reading. I said, I don't even understand what I just read. I felt weird reading this book, like I was inside their heads. I think for that reason, I didn't necessarily enjoy it. It's hard to rate because did I enjoy reading this book? No, but did I think it was an interesting, challenging, and new way to write characters? Yes. I didn't like any aspect of this book because it was unlikable. However, I couldn't put it down. So what was hard for me about this book was that, like, I'm not going to give you a synopsis because I feel like you should just go into this blind. This is a very character-driven book. It's about like 2 people. I go on to give you a synopsis. It's about like 2 people, Connell and Marianne, who like are very clearly soulmates, but they just are never going to be able to get together just because of their circumstances. I felt weird rating and reading this because it was like I was inside someone's like diary or like in a therapy session with these people, and they were telling me all these like really personal and like traumatic like events, and like I knew everything about their lives, and then it just ended, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable reading this because they felt like such real people to me. And did I enjoy the story? No, because it was like weird and scary, and like the characters were unlikable, and it was just like a bizarre story. But did I think that this book was a masterpiece? Yes. But I typically rate on enjoyment, so that's why I was having a hard time rating this book. I recommend reading this. It was very good. I was just slightly confused. This is the first book that I've read like this. I'm more of a plot-driven reader, I think. So, very interesting read. I enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to be picking up some more of Sally Rooney. I read this in a day. I read this in one sitting. Had a lot of one-sitting reads this month. I rated it 3 stars. Is that accurate? No. Is that the best I could do? Yes. That was like the first. Oh my god, I have so much more to do. Okay, then I'm going to try and speed round a little bit because I have a lot more to do. Who knew 11 books is going to be such a long wrap up? I'm talking a lot today. The next book I read was By a Thread by Lucy Score. This is my second Lucy Score read, and I rated it 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I started out loving this book, and little by little it kind of like decreased with every little thing that I kind of found wrong with it. Not that this book was bad, it was actually really good. The thing that I couldn't handle was like the double epilogue. The extended epilogue, like I understand an epilogue, a little closing chapter, because you have to end with a bang. So like you end with a bang and then you can have an epilogue that like kind of rounds it out. But then the double epilogue was just so long, and I could not with like the kids and like their whole, like I didn't need to know that. Like I could have done with the epilogue and just ended it. So like the last 20 pages dragged on so bad, and that's something I really did not enjoy. I liked the main characters. Dom is my type of like love interest character, you know. He's very like grumpy. I love that. That's, like I said, one of my favorite tropes. So I really liked it. It was grumpy sunshine, slightly enemies to lovers, workplace romance, slow burn, a lot of good tropes in there. I even liked the female protagonist, which isn't very rare for me in books, but it's harder for me to like the female protagonist than the male protagonist. But I liked Allie. It was an extreme slow burn. Like the first 300 pages, they didn't even like touch hands. You know what I mean? So like Lucy Score does slow burns right. I feel like Mariana Zapata is too slow burny. Lucy Score is the good slow burn pace for me. Another thing that I disliked about this book that kind of notched it down a little bit more on like the star rating scale was that in the end, like I felt like Allie should have given him a little bit more grief and like kind of made him struggle a little bit more to win her back than she actually did. Like, I felt like his offense was worse than the punishment he got for it. Other than that, it was a good book. It's about Dominic, and he gets her fired from one of her like 5 jobs. And so his mother witnesses this, and she's like, wow, that was really rude. So she meets up with Allie later and is like, here, I have a job for you. Allie gets hired into this big fashion company, and Dominic is the CEO. Good Lucy Score book. Really enjoyed. This is a lot of freaking filming. I need to hurry up. I'm talking so much. Okay, the next book I read, A Very Merry Bromance. I rated it 2.5 stars. I really enjoyed the beginning of this book. I read it on my phone, so like, not like a Kindle because it wasn't on Kindle, but it was like, I read it on my phone legally. Okay, I rented the digital copy, right? So really like the beginning. I almost bought a physical copy, and then I'm glad I didn't because it just went downhill and downhill and downhill. This is about like a country music star. He has like a one night stand with this girl. Like, he's pining over her, and she's like, nope, nope, nope. She's a lawyer. She leaves really fast after the one night stand, whatever. He's been pining after her for years, and they eventually meet up, and like she needs his help for something. Wow. There's just a lot going on. This is a Christmas romance. It wasn't too Christmassy, honestly. I can't exactly explain why it went from such a high rating for me, like really loving it, to like such a low rating. But just as I read, I was just like liking it less and less. And for no reason that I can really articulate, it just kind of happened. So I'm gonna end that there. Very Merry Bromance, me. The Legacy by L. Kennedy. This is the last book in the off-campus series. I ended up giving this a 1 star. This is a book of like basically a bunch of short story epilogues. I like a few of them. I especially like the one with Garrett and Hannah, obviously my favorite couple from the off-campus series. But a lot of them just dragged on, and I had been reading this since January 3rd, and I finished it on January 24th. This took me so long to read because it was just boring. Some people really like this. I don't. I'm not a huge fan of, like I said, extended epilogues earlier, and this is basically 300 pages of extended epilogues. I read it to finish out the series. I'm glad I read it, but I would not recommend it like, just by itself. But like as a part of the off-campus series, it was worth reading. The next book I finished, A Secret History by Donna Tartt. This was another really hard book to rate for me. This is the type of book I felt like I needed to read it again before I could rate it. Ended up rating it 3 stars, but let me also read you kind of like the blurb that I wrote after I finished this book. I said it was strange and disturbing. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time reading this, and it was addicting. I wanted to keep reading it, but I couldn't say that I enjoyed it just because of the content of this book. It's like a weird murder mystery. I'm not going to explain the plot because I don't think I even could, but you like know who did it, so it's like not even a mystery. I wrote, I don't think I'm smart enough to fully comprehend this book on the first read through. I would have to read it again to be able to accurately rate this book based on my enjoyment, because I was just processing this whole book the first time I read it. Like Normal People by Sally Rooney, I didn't enjoy this book per se, but I did recognize that it was a masterpiece. I typically rate on enjoyment, and this was not a book that you could ever enjoy. Like, the subjects in this book are just not, you don't enjoy these subjects. But it was definitely a masterpiece, definitely a modern classic. Really had a good time reading this, and not a good time in the sense that it was fun, good time in the sense that I was enraptured in the story. Wow, what a vocabulary word for this video. Okay, the next book I finished was A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime by Monica Murphy. I rated this 3.5 stars. I started off really loving this book, and I ended up really liking this book. I can't hold this one. This one's too heavy. I really love the toxicity. Like, it was clearly a terrible relationship, but like I loved it. I love reading about rich people. Oh, let me give you a synopsis. So we've got Crew and we've got Ren. And these were another 2 names that I kept getting confused on which was which of the characters. But eventually by the end I've got the hang of it. But like, anyway, so we got Crew and Ren. Crew is the son of like this huge real estate guy, and like he owns a boarding school, and so his father owns this boarding school and they go to it, whatever. Ren is this girl whose dad is also a real estate agent, but like she's really rich, so she goes to this really rich boarding school, but she's like this like angel girl. Like she holds fast to her virtues. It's like when I think of the name like Mary, I can't even explain it. Like, what am I saying? Anyways, Ren, she's a goody two shoes. That's what I'm looking for. There we go. They fall in love. Crew changes her whole outlook on life. Like, yeah, it's the story of two rich kids from a boarding school falling in love. I enjoyed the premise. I loved the ending. There was no third act breakup in this book, which I find when authors can write a book with no third act breakup, that is a talent, like for real. Every single book I read nowadays has a third act breakup, and if you can write a successful romance book without a third act breakup, you are a magician. For real. There could have been, like, even though I really liked the ending, there could have been a little bit more of a resolution or like finality to it before the epilogue. I felt like there could have been one more chapter at the end, and you still could have ended with a bang and then went into the epilogue. You know what I'm saying? Like, there could have been just like 5 more pages to really just wrap it all up. The resolution of this book wasn't really resolution. I felt like since they were kids, they kind of just like pushed all their problems back till later in their life, which is fine. That's like what I do, but it was kind of annoying to watch. I did kind of find Ren really annoying, but like she got better as the books went on. I really enjoyed Rue as a character. I feel like it was very much like a coming of age story in a sense, because Ren was growing out of her like childhood, growing out of like her parents, kind of leaving her parents, being her own person, really. Definitely recommend reading this. TikTok was right. You've got The Duke and I, a Bridgerton book, right? I'm really disappointed that I got the mass market paperback. I ordered it off Amazon, the paperback, and they sent me this. And then I was like, should I return it and just get the regular paperback? Come to find out that the regular paperback is $8 more than this. So I was like, F it. I'm just going to keep this one. And so I'm going to collect the rest of them in mass market paperback. It was just a fun read. Like I got it on audio and I listened to it, and because I knew I had wanted to read it before, and so like I got it on audio and was listening to it, ordered the book while I was listening to it. I'm not going to tell you what this is about because there's a show. If you really want to know, go watch the show. I liked the show better. This definitely added a lot. Not added a lot. It was the original, but like I felt like the show was a very good condensed version and a very good version of this book. I recommend the show more, and that might be because I watched it first. But yes, it was interesting to compare the two. But it was exactly what I expected. Like, not a trashy romance, but like an easy romance to read. You know what I'm saying? It was just fun and games. Okay, last book. Holy crap. This is taking me forever. Alright, for real, last book. So the last book I read in January, Twisted Games by Anna Huang. This is the second book in the Twisted series, and this follows Bridget and her bodyguard, Reese Loren. I liked this better than the first one. Oh, I rated this 4 stars. The beginning was not great. It felt like we skipped over a few things, but the ending was really strong. I really liked this couple more than the first one. This is like my first bodyguard romance. These are dark romances. Had fun. Was exactly what I was expecting, kind of. So those are all the books I read in January. That took me a long time. It's going to take me a long time to edit. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a great reading month, and I'll see you in the next one.